I was going to ask you about pH next. Now, you already mentioned 5.5 pH for a 30 to 60 minute soak to begin, and then that's going to end up around 6.2, 6.5 pH. But how about the remaining parts of the grow, like the veg, flower? Are you aiming for a specific pH of the nutrient solution?
Yes. Yeah. So when we're in clones, I aim for between 6.2 and 6.4. When we get into vegging, meaning clones are acclimated and we're transplanting them, and we do 3 transplants essentially. So we go clone into the first transplant, which is an Aoki cube, and then we go those 1.5 inch Aokis into 4 inch. I forgot what they call them. The 6 inches are the Hugos. I forgot what the name is for the 4 inches, but we go into a 4x4x4 block, right? And then from there, we go into a 3-gallon pot. If it's a mom, 5-gallon pot. But if it's something that's going into production, it's a 3-gallon pot. So that's it. And so at each stage of that, we change the pH range until we get into flower, and then we maintain a consistent pH range for majority of flower. So we start out from 6.2 to 6.4, and then when we get into the 4-inch cubes, we go from 6 to 6.2. And then once we essentially are ready to transplant into pots, we'll keep it at around that 6. And then over the course of 3 or 4 weeks in veg, once we transplant into pots, we'll usually continue to veg for another 3 to 4 weeks. And then over that 3 or 4 weeks, we'll wean it off from 6.0, 6.1, 6.0 to roughly 5.8. And once we hit 5.8, we'll flip to flower, and then we'll start our flowering. And then we'll usually maintain 5.8 until the very end of flowering, and we'll kick it down to 5.7. And that little tenth is it, you'll get a little bit more again in our system. I can't speak to everything, but in our system we'll get a little bit more trichome production, because then you're getting pretty low in the pH, which is fine in hydro, but you are getting down there. So you'll start seeing that adds a little bit of stress to the plant. So we'll get that little extra trichome production right at the end to just get that little bit of frost. So yeah, that's it. So I would say, from broadly speaking, 6.4 to 5.7 will be our range over the course of, roughly the 14 to 16 weeks that plant will be alive from clone till harvest.
Got it. Now, have you ever encountered pH fluctuations that has caused problems with the plant's growth?
No. I mean, if you go crazy, yeah, of course, but everything's within range. So I find that if you keep, when we're talking pH, if you can keep it within 0.3, 0.4, you're not going to hurt the plant. That is a big swing, but it's not going to hurt the plant. So if something happens where maybe you didn't calibrate your pH meter or something like that, and you are an extra tenth or 0.2 off in one direction or the other, no, you're fine. It's not going to do anything. You'd have to skew it pretty bad.
This clip was brought to you by AC Infinity. Use discount code MrGrowIt15 to save on any of their gardening products.